What's up, everybody? We are live on YouTube. Let's go ahead and add in our friends over there on Facebook and on Twitter, and then we're going to get underway. Welcome in. See some people are already jumping into the podcast. Welcome in. We got a lot to get into here, and we are live. What's up, everybody? My name is Garrett Chapman here on the Falcons Podcast with your host, Garrett Chapman. Give me a follow at ChapATL on Twitter. Stay fully up to date on everything that we have coming out here now that we're in the offseason, in the thick of it. This is our first post-Super Bowl show. The Seattle Seahawks, they handled business of the New England Patriots. I know a lot of people down in Falcons country are pretty pleased to see that one. But either way, we're not going to talk too much about them because we got a lot to talk about here in Atlanta ourselves. And I got my phone going off. Oh, my goodness. Sorry about that. My Siri is going a little bit crazy there. My Siri thought I was talking to it. But no, give me a follow at GChapATL. We got a lot of off-season discussion points that are going to be coming out here on Twitter. You can also go check out the website, Falcons on SI. You can see a whole bunch of other stuff that we have coming out. Free agency, things with the Falcons and quarterback options and all kinds of fun stuff. And we'll talk about some of that here on the podcast. But, of course, the best way is to go find all that is right there on the website. So make sure to go check that out. But today we have a great show set up for you. I mean, obviously the big thing is James Penix Jr. It's not our headlining story for this, but, of course, it's the headlining story. I see some people jumping in the comments already asking about James Penix. What's the latest on all of that? And it's a nasty situation down there in Miami. And until it gets fully resolved, I preach patience for as many people as possible. It's a nasty spot, but we're also going to talk a little bit about what this offensive staff can potentially do for the Falcons moving into 2026. I want to keep it a little bit football related as much as I can, but of course, as always, I will answer your questions. Anything that I do know as far as this James Penix stuff goes, I'll be happy to provide that information to you. But I do want to keep this as football as related as I can, but maybe if you want to ask questions, I'm here to do that. And obviously, Super Chats, those are the best way to support the podcast. It's also the best way to get your question to the front of the line. So make sure to drop those in, and we'll get to those. And again, any questions that people have coming in, I will try to get to as many of those as I can. But I see some folks are already into the pod right here. Michael Ronquillo, what's up, my friend? Double the hearts. Always hits it with the hearts. Welcome as always, Michael. And then Rusty says, to be fair, nobody cares about what the new offensive staff brings at the moment. You know what we want to talk about. Yeah, you're right. You are right. So let's get into this latest with the James Penix Jr. I mean, Rusty, you nailed it. I mean, like this is the biggest story. And he, of course, was arrested over the weekend in Miami, charged with several felonies. Ironically, I was hanging out with a handful of people who do Falcons coverage, and we were all having dinner at the exact time that all this stuff came out. And the waiter was over saying, "Oh, we'll just chatting it up or whatever." And then somebody said, "Oh, shoot, James Penix got arrested." And on a dime, every single head went straight down to the phone. The waiter was absolutely blown away. He said, "I don't know what the hell is going on." And to be frank, I mean, none of us did either. And the situation it's not great. It's not great right now. So allegedly, James Penix Jr. intentionally hit an officer with his Lamborghini while evading police in Miami-Dade County. On top of that, the defender, he allegedly crashed his vehicle into the car belonging to Rickea Jackson of the WNBA, his now ex-girlfriend. And according to TMZ, Jackson told police that she had ended their 3-year relationship in the days preceding this whole interaction. Blocked James Penix's number, but that James Penix had used a different phone number to continue contacting her. But then while she obviously was not responding to him, and then he didn't like that. And James Penix shows up at her apartment complex in Miami, starts following her in his SUV. She attempts to flee, but in the process, he approaches her vehicle on foot at a red light, and she drove directly to Doral City Police Department. That's where James Penix started crashing into her vehicle. And the whole situation is really bad. It's not good, and it could have been a whole lot worse, truthfully. As soon as he got out of his vehicle, as soon as police arrived on the scene, one pulled a weapon. He did not comply with verbal commands. He locked his door, attempted to drive away. That's where he hit the officer in his left knee. And he's evading arrest. And the whole situation is terrible. I mean, the domestic violence is obviously terrible. This whole situation is pretty brutal. 5 felony charges come of it. He was released on a $20,500 bond, plus a stay away order from Rakia Jackson. The whole situation is really, really not good. And it's clear that there is some anger that exists with James Pierce Jr. There's some rehabilitation that will have to take place, whether that's anger management or things of that nature. Whether that happens here in a Falcons uniform, I think that remains to be seen. But I will preach patience. That's something that I've long believed, that you need to wait for all of the information to come out, no matter how good or bad the information may be. It's important that we wait for the process, the criminal process, to take place. It's a sad day for Falcons fans, for a lot of people who supported him, and for a lot of people who were hoping that he was going to turn just on the football side of it. I mean, just based off of the season that he had. It's disappointing in that sense, but it's also, nobody had a worse day than Rakia Jackson. And it's extremely important to keep that in mind, that she's the victim in this instance. Football aside, football is a game that people play, and I love talking about it, and I know you guys like talking about it as well. But ultimately, she's a victim in this instance, and it's very important to keep that in mind as this whole process goes out. But it is important to let the judicial process take place. Let the investigation happen. The NFL is going to conduct an investigation of its own. We've seen varying degrees of outcomes that come of this. The official statement from James Pierce Jr. was basically that they look forward to working with the state attorney's office. Let me see if I can actually fully read it. We look forward to working with the state attorney's office in fully investigating this case and uncovering the truth. Mr. Pierce maintains his innocence and urges the public to understand that while allegations have the power to shape a narrative, that is hardly the full, complete story. We look forward to vigorously defending our client and remain confident that he will continue contributing positively to both his team and the community he serves so well. Again, that's the official statement from James Pierce's legal team. The Falcons released an official statement of their own, saying that we are, quote, "We are aware of an incident involving James Pierce Jr. in Miami. We are in the process of gathering more information and will not have any further comment on the open legal matter at this time." Look, hitting an officer is about as bad a situation as you could imagine. That's really bad. They don't take that lightly. Evading an officer and doing stuff like that is just about as bad of a decision as he could have made. And I saw that. I mean, I was talking with my editors, with Scott and everybody else. That could potentially cause prison time. He could be in jail for upwards of 5 years, potentially even more. And it's a nasty situation. And I believe I saw Mark Raimondi of ESPN. He came out with one update that I do want to provide folks. I want to make sure that I get this correct too. All right. So according to Mark Raimondi of ESPN, says, per the incident report obtained by ESPN, this is on his Twitter at Mark Raimondi, James Pierce Jr. was given 9 traffic citations as a result of the chase that ended in his felony arrest on Saturday, including reckless driving with damage to a person or property, operating on the wrong side of the road, and fleeing or attempting to elude a law enforcement officer. So all of that is going to be coming in in addition to his other felony arrests. He was arrested on 5 felony counts, which include aggravated battery with a deadly weapon, which would be his car, aggravated stalking, and aggravated battery of a law enforcement officer. So again, the situation's not good. It's going to continue to evolve. The NFL is going to conduct its own investigation of this whole process, and we'll figure out when they do. A lot of that information is going to come out at the same time, or at least we assume it will. A lot of it's going to start coming out here over the next couple of weeks as the investigation continues to go on. But just let the legal process play out. That's what I would implore people to do. it's a tough situation off the field. On the field, I mean, we know who he is, right? We know the guy. He had a tough edge to him. He was a big, tough guy. He added a lot to the team itself. 10.5 sacks, most sacks for any rookie since 2021. You saw the potential, but you also saw the reason that a lot of people took him off their draft boards. This is what the Falcons were risking when Terry Fontenot traded a future first to go get this guy. And I'd say that the vast majority of opinions on the matter have come in and said that the Falcons are drafting him at 15, regardless of what all was going to happen. But Jalen Walker becoming available kind of changed things for him. So then they trade up those assets and then they go from there. But this is the risk that they were playing. And this is that guy. I mean, some people have said that this is the last time that they're going to see James Pierce Jr. in a Falcons uniform. I'm not ready to say that. And it's not me cheering one way or the other. It's just we've seen a lot of different things happen. And this is why I encourage people to wait for the judicial process to completely unfold. I read you verbatim what happened, the official statements, the official stances of everybody at this time, but it's still in the early stages, I mean, we'll see what actually it evolves out of this, and we'll see what else comes, because information is still coming out as of right now, and it's going to be one of those processes. And look, it's going to take some time. It's going to take a little bit of time. I see Rusty Moore. Oh, so they're Rusty. And then B-Side Rap Reviews. And if you have comments, if you have questions, I'm more than happy to answer as many of those as I can. I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to be able to give the best legal advice, I guess you could say. I'm not going to give any legal advice, actually. But I can answer things as best I know them, just as a reporter, as somebody who's been following the situation and seeing what's going on. But B-Side Rap Reviews comes in and says, hate to be a Debbie Downer, but I didn't see anything creative from Reese or Stefanski. So this is going into our normal thing here. So B-Side, I'm actually going to come back to your comment. I'm going to come back to that one. B-Side comes back and says, I remember a tweet came out saying James Pierce Jr. was an absolute crazy and had an insane temper. Unfortunately, he was right. I saw somebody had said that as well. Again, I'm not trying to pile onto this guy at this point. We knew that he was going to be, there were some off-field issues. And Raheem Morris, we asked him specifically about it. I remember asking about it during the regular season. They said that they did a thorough process behind the scenes. And this could actually be an article that I can put together. I can actually go back and find all the quotes on the process that they said they went through. They said that they had independent people who they trusted, who had opinions of their own, saying that he is just a tough football guy. And I mean, I can go back and pull those quotes. And I can see if I can put together an article on that. But ultimately, let's wait for this whole process to take place. And the situation is bad. It's really bad. And I just hope it doesn't get worse just for James, just for all parties involved, ultimately. B-Side Rap Reviews says that was from a high school teammate. Okay. Joe Mata says, cut his ass. That's going to be a very common sentiment. That's going to be something that we hear a lot of over the next couple of weeks. Sam Klontz comes through on YouTube and says, any indications on how this front office will approach free agency, splash signings, compensatory game? No, not yet. Of course, you know as much as I do, just in terms of what these guys have said, that what they have said on the record and what they have done, which is nothing. They haven't done anything, so we're still in the very, very early phases of all of this. This is going to be a situation that's going to continue to evolve over the coming weeks. I would imagine we get some kind of an idea at the beginning of I guess the end of this month when we get to the NFL Combine. You can see who they're interviewing, who they actually request to speak with. It might give us an early indicator of kind of what they're looking at. But again, that's still, it's all we can do at that point is speculate. Still a very early phase here for this new staff, and the regime's going to change. Things are going to change, and I don't expect an identical approach to what you saw with Raheem Morris, but it's impossible to know really what's going to be very different. Unfortunately, that's not a great answer, but that's all we have right now. Rusty continues and says, if Arthur is serious about winning, he better be calling that judge and paying them off under the table. He's old. What are they going to do? Throw him in jail? I'm never. No. Look, I know you're joking. This is also a domestic violence suit. There's some stuff that's going on in that. This is bigger than football, and we need to keep that in mind. B-Side Rap Review says, I'd say there's only 4 to 6 owners that actually care about a winning, and Arthur ain't one. I don't know where you get that from. For the rest, winning is nice, but it doesn't affect the bottom line much. I don't know where that sentiment comes from. Arthur Blank invests a metric blank ton of money into his football team, a lot more than most. He's willing to pay aggressive salaries. He's willing to do what he has to do to get this team to a winning level. Look at the upgrades that they've done at Flowery Branch. Look at the upgrades they've done to the locker room, to the weight room, to the facilities, to the training staff that they have on site, to the multi-billion-dollar stadium that is there for the players and for the fans and everybody else. They're trying to create a winning product. And I don't understand where this mentality has come, where Arthur Blank doesn't care about winning. It's ludicrous. It's just freaking hard in the NFL. It's really hard to win. And this isn't me going to bat for Arthur Blank or the team or whatever. The last couple of seasons have been very difficult. But I've seen this sentiment on social media from a lot of people. And a lot of it just has to do with the fact that the Falcons just haven't won. It has nothing to do with Arthur Blank. Arthur Blank wants to win really, really freaking badly. Let's just be very clear about that. I have seen at no point any indication to the contrary. Period. This is a blatantly false statement that I've seen. And I'm not just coming at you, B-Side. I'm coming at everybody on social media who comes out with the same opinion. I've seen a lot of it, and I just don't see any merit to it. There's nothing to back it up. All right, I'm going to come back to this other comment from earlier. B-Side comes back and says, hate to be a Debbie Downer, but I didn't see anything creative from Reese or Stefanski. Pretty much just run, drop back, and die. And that's irrespective of the quarterback position situation. So I would say that there were a lot of issues that this Cleveland Browns team had. The quarterback position is one of the major issues that unit had. It was clearly the biggest one. They are not what the Falcons have. I want to be very clear. I'm going to get in a little bit deeper into my explanation as to why I'm kind of excited about what this offensive unit could look like under this new coaching staff. I think that Stefanski's got some great stuff. Tommy Reese is a young coach. It's hard to know what exactly he's going to be at this point in his career. He's 33 years old. He's been an offensive coordinator for 4 years now, 5 years now. I mean, it's been a long time, especially for his age. But I mean, they had what, 3 rookie running backs on that team, 2 rookie running backs. They had 2 rookie quarterbacks. Then they had a 41-year-old Joe Flacco. That's what they had to really play with last year, and it was a disaster. And then on top of that, their top receiving option was a rookie in Harold Fannin. It was a dreadful situation. So it's really hard to put a lot on Stefanski or Tommy Reese in terms of the overall success of the Cleveland Browns. Now, that's going to be put to the test. There's a reason that he was hired and brought in, and so many people were so interested in Kevin Stefanski and this staff, right? Tommy Reese interviewed to be the head coach up there. Now, I don't know how serious they were of actually employing him as the head coach. I can't speak on what's going on with the Browns, but I do know that he was spoken to by a lot of people, and he consistently gets other opportunities, right? That means people around the league look fondly upon this guy, and Stefanski specifically is one that I'll point to for that. He was the second hottest name on the coaching market, the second hottest one. And I don't know why people hate that so much. All right, Halsey comes through, says, Falcons need Matt Ryan and Cunningham to stop the trade ups. They don't work. They do work. They do work really well. They've worked several times. They don't always work. I can point to, there are several instances where they have worked really well. There are other instances where they haven't. It just depends on what you see value. Based off of what we heard from Ian Cunningham, sounds like the Falcons are going to be one of those trade back teams. So, Halsey, congratulations. It seems like you've got your wish. They talked a lot about swings at the plate, bites at the apple, whichever phrase you want to use. They won a lot of picks. And I love the idea of having some more opportunities. These guys, they don't like it when we call it like a guessing game because they really don't like that. But ultimately, there kind of is some guesswork to it. You're presuming to know what somebody's future is going to be, their injury future, their off field future, their all this other stuff, and then on top of that, it's scheme fits and everything. And you're projecting too body size, the way you're going to adapt to the NFL. There are a lot of other things that you can do with this. So you want to take as many shots as you can. And that was one of the biggest detriments, I would say, of the Terry Fontenot era, is that he didn't bring in a lot of guys, coming in from the from the draft. You took a lot of high volatility decisions. You made a lot of those decisions, and sometimes they worked and sometimes they didn't. And you could talk about the ones that didn't work out. You look at Arnold Ebiketie, you could Troy Anderson. Those are high value picks. Richie Grant's another one. Some of those you even traded up to go get. Ruka Roro is another one that you traded up to go get. It remains to be seen if he's worth the value that you traded to go get him, especially with the opportunity cost of looking at all the other players that you could have potentially added to your team. And when players get hurt, that's when that sort of thing is really, you shine a spotlight on that thing, and then it gets kind of glaring. And that's where it's been kind of for the Atlanta Falcons just in general, because depth was a big issue. I was reading something that, speaking of Mark Ramondi from earlier in the show, I was reading something he wrote the other day, talking about 2026 and what this team needs. Depth. That's what they need. Wide receiver, offensive line, defensive line, linebacker, cornerback room. You need depth. You don't have depth anywhere. Running back, quarterback. Like, I don't think that the Falcons, that was their biggest detriment, is that, and then it got burned, because they didn't stay healthy. They didn't have the guys who you need to stay healthy. And then they didn't have anybody behind them. God forbid a Bijan Robinson or Tyler Algier got hurt, because then you're really in up the crapper, man. But you saw it at wide receiver. You didn't see it as tight end, but when Kyle Pitts wasn't having a good game, there really wasn't anybody else. And it's just, you saw it across the board, and that's one of the dangerous parts of trading up. It's aggressive, but there's opportunity cost to every decision that you make. LSEMUAN, Lasman. I don't know. I'm sorry. Forgive me. It's hard reading these names because it's really small on my screen. So forgive me for that one. But he says, what about Darren Lee? Is Darren Lee the... Oh, okay. Oh, shoot. Oh, what a heartbreaking situation this is. I don't know anything about this situation. I'm not going to comment on it. So Darren Lee, of course, he's accused of murdering, I believe, a woman, his girlfriend. This is a heartbreaking situation. I don't know anything about Darren Lee. I don't know anything about his situation, so I'm not going to comment on it. Sorry. Dylan Thompson says, early prediction, week 1 starting quarterback, Michael Penix. What personnel do you expect Atlanta to run the most of? That's a good question, actually, because we've seen the personnel groupings evolve a lot, just in terms of whatever Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay are doing. I think you see a lot of people start doing that. 13 personnel, so the 3 tight ends was something that you saw a lot of people do this year. And that's different than, of course, you go from 21 personnel to 11 personnel, whatever. You've seen it evolve all the time. And you're going to be coming in. You've got a slightly different scheme than what you had before. It's still that West Coast with Gary Kubiak sort of influences that you could see there. But it's impossible to know. This personnel groupings are something that Kevin Stefanski and Tommy Rees and these guys, they're going to be evolving based off of the personnel that we have here. So it depends on what you do with tight ends. I mean, this team is not capable of running a 13 personnel. It's just not something that they could possibly do right now. They don't have enough tight ends. They just don't. And I mean, Tegan Quintaro is he's a good player. He's a fine player. He's a blocking player. He's mostly special teams. Came in for some heavy sets, but it's not something that he doesn't offer you anything in the receiving game. Charlie Warner doesn't really offer you a bunch in the receiving game. He had a couple of plays this year, especially late in the season, but he's not going to give you that much. Kyle Pitts is not even really technically lining up as a tight end most of the time. He's like 14% of the time he's lining up in pure off, like in-line splits and stuff like that. So it depends on who you sign in free agency. So it's hard to know right now. Yeah, I mean, who's going to be your backup running back? Who's going to run alongside of Bijan Robinson? So a personnel question is difficult to answer right now because it's a very much an incomplete product right now. But as far as the quarterback position goes, I do think it's going to be Michael Penix. It has to be. You really, really need it to be, because if it's not Michael Penix, that means he's not ready to go. That or he gets beat out, and none of those situations really show up for a good thing, right? That would all be pretty bad. So I guess everybody's hoping it's going to be Michael Penix, and until shown otherwise, I'm going to assume it's going to be Michael Penix. And he hasn't had a public setback, and based off of everything that I have heard, things have been positive in terms of his recovery. He was just on with Kay Adams and said good things there. He said it was Zach Klein from WSB. You've heard it now in several different places that he is on track and or ahead of schedule. That tells me he should be ready at some time in maybe late July, maybe even early August, and see what that looks like and if who they bring in to be the second quarterback. Because if you cut Kirk Cousins, which is what it's looking like it's going to be, you're going to be cutting Kirk Cousins just based off of cap situations. You need another quarterback. If they go out and bring in Joe Flacco or somebody of that ilk, then that tells me that Michael Penix is going to be the starter. But Joe Flacco can take over if he has to, But if you go get, Malik Willis, okay, that tells me that Michael Penix is in a quarterback competition and he's fighting for his job. If you bring back Kirk Cousins, it means he's in a quarterback competition. He's fighting for his job. So it remains to be seen. But the next couple of weeks are going to be telling. I got 2 super chats. I got to dive into these quickly. Big thank you to Rio Smith. James Pierce Jr.'s strong neck cast got me hot. His pending suspension has been thrown the whole offseason off. Keeping AK and Floyd are critical now. Need defensive line, cornerback 2 wide receivers, linebacker as the top needs, but we need depth everywhere. Depth is imperative. Depth is paramount. That's what you need more than anything. But as far as individual positions go, we don't know what James Pierce's situation is going to be. We have to wait for this legal process to unfold. But assuming he's even back in a Falcons uniform, so assuming he doesn't go to prison, then we're looking at potentially a minimum of 6 games. Again, I'm speculating. I don't know that to be true. I'm not predicting anything. I'm not saying anything like that. But based off of other results and other suspensions across the NFL, that would be kind of a reasonable expectation there. But the NFL is going to conduct its own investigation, and all that information is going to be coming separate of the criminal investigation. But defensive line is definitely going to be a need. You need some big guys on that defensive line, 300-pounders. You didn't have a lot of them at all last year, and people ran on you. You had a 24th ranked run defense and EPA per rush, 24th, and total yards allowed on the ground. It was a bad situation there, and there's a reason you lost games. It's a reason that that some teams were able to come back on you. It was why the Seahawks were able to do what they did to you. But that and the fact that you couldn't tackle anybody, you couldn't tackle Rashid Shaheed or hold on to the football and offense. But there were a lot of reasons you lost to the Seahawks. But you need a defensive line. A cornerback too. I don't have this as high as everybody else. I know Mike Hughes. I was actually just going through Falcons players who have the make or break seasons moving into next year. And Mike Hughes was very high on that list. He was very high on that list. And I think he's still going to be your guy just because you don't really have a lot of other options. You have to trade back in this draft. You have to get more assets. You don't have a first round pick, which really hurts what you can do potentially in 2026. It's a tough spot. It's a really tough spot. And I think 26 is going to be very much a wait and see season for the Falcons. And that's a disappointing place to be, especially coming into last season where you're expecting to make a run at the playoffs and then see what you can do and gear up and really go for it in 2026. That's what I was optimistic about. That's what I thought their plan was. It didn't end up being the case. But no, AK is somebody, Arnold Ebiketie, Leonard Floyd. I don't want to say they're critical necessarily. I think Arnold Ebiketie could potentially be one of those options that you could have. I don't know if he wants to be in Atlanta. I know he had the the whole situation last season during the trade deadline where he wanted to be traded. I don't know if that was because he wanted to go play on some team who's going to compete for the playoffs, or if he really wanted to be out of Atlanta. So he's going to have a different outside linebackers coach. So it's going to evolve. So we'll see what actually happens with I keep saying Alvin Kamara. AK just popped into my head as Alvin Kamara from the Saints. But Arnold Ebiketie is somebody who can potentially fill that role. But Leonard Floyd is one who I think he's coming back. Depends on how much he's going to cost. If he goes to a different team, it's going to be his fifth team in 5 years, right? I think he wants to stay. This is his home. He's from Atlanta or from Georgia. I would imagine he wants to stay at Atlanta, but TBD. Wide receiver is a huge need. Linebacker, I think, is a very important need. Depends on what you do with Caden Ellis. If you bring back Caden Ellis, I think then I would go into the draft. You could also bring back Ronnie Harrison. He's also going to be a free agent there. And you could effectively just run it back, and maybe you can draft a linebacker later in the draft. I've had some mock drafts where Rodriguez is a guy that you can go get. There are some good linebackers in this class that you can get on day 2. And I think you can solidify some depth there at that position. But they have a lot of needs, man. The Falcons just have a lot of needs, and it gets me a little worried there. But Rio Smith comes back again. Big thank you, Rio, again. Says Tyler's probably gone, shoved to the Falcons. Wouldn't be the worst idea. I don't know what Chubb has left in the tank. I don't know what he has left in the tank. I ultimately, he got supplanted by Woody Marks, and he's been dealing with lots of knee injuries throughout the course of his career. And look, it's different from the quarterback position. Quarterback, you're not getting hit nearly as much. You're not needing to cut and move and power through people in the same way the running back is. The knee injuries have started to pile up on him. I've actually long thought his career is over. I was surprised he signed with Houston, and he looked good for periods of time. And then Woody Marks just completely took him over. So no, I don't think that he's necessarily your best option. If you can get him on a really cheap deal and maybe he comes in and provide some competition, and then you can see what he looks like, and just like as a camp body, and maybe he can power through if he can. Great. Because you're not going to ask him to do a whole bunch. And he's familiar with the Stefanski scheme. He's done it before. Had some of his best years with Kevin Stefanski, and just injuries caught up to him, and it was just time to move on. Not my favorite option necessarily. I love Nick Chubb, but he's not my favorite option. I don't see that one happening necessarily. But thank you for those questions. Big thank you there. Let me get back to some of these other comments, and then I'm going to get into the matter at hand. Dylan Thompson says, where do you see Drake London's contract being value-wise? About $33 million. It was in that range, somewhere in there. He's going to be in the same class as Puka Nacua. Of course, because Puka has 4 years. Drake has the 5th. So it accelerates things. And Puka's going to be at about 38 to 40. I would imagine he's going to be the guy who resets the market. But there are going to be some expensive guys. I mean, Chris Olave is going to be in this class as well. There's a good chance that Jackson Smith and Jigba, he gets an extension too, just because of what he was able to do. He won an Offensive Player of the Year. I think the Seahawks would be wise to go ahead and get that extension taken care of before it gets prohibitively expensive. But as far as Drake goes, I mean, I would imagine that it's somewhere in the range of $33 million. It's not going to be cheap. It's not going to be the most expensive contract on the market, but it's not going to be cheap either. Dylan comes back and says, do you think Bijan will be the highest paid running back entering 2027? Entering 27, no. I don't think so, just because you have him under contract that year. But he will have all pros, and that's going to drive up the price of his 5th-year option. So it may be better for you just because it secures him over the next couple of years. Maybe you can do some escalators, some other things like that, but he's going to be expensive. And I'd imagine he's going to cost upwards of $20 million. Maybe not quite up to $20 million, but I would imagine somewhere in the range of, Alvin Kamara is set to make $18 million next year. I think that was a courtesy contract from the New Orleans Saints, but ultimately I could see, Bijan's going to be the highest paid player. He just is. The only person who would make more than he would at this point in his career is Jahmyr Gibbs. Very similar type of player, and I think at that point, it's just whoever gets paid first. Whoever gets paid second is going to be the higher paid player. Just because, I mean, it's going to be Jahmyr Gibbs contract plus $1, like similar to what Trey McBride did. Dylan Thompson says, last one here from him, and he says, biggest trade piece in Atlanta. It's impossible to know. Jesse Bates, maybe. Because you have to think of somebody who has enough value that they would fetch something of value on the market. But at the same time, you need to think of somebody who's in a contract situation that's in a decent enough spot. You don't really have a wide receiver that you would send for assets. You don't have a kick returner or a punt returner who you could send for assets. You don't have enough depth on the offensive line, really, or the defensive line to send anybody. Off running back, you don't really have anybody there. Wide receiver, no. I guess it's Jesse Bates, but in that point, why would you trade Jesse Bates? He's still in his 20s, and he just had an all-pro season. That wouldn't make any sense to me. So I don't see the Falcons making any trades with players, just based off of current roster construction. Halsey says fans have every right to be skeptical. Oh my God, about owner motivations. Yeah, no, you're right. And look, people are entitled to that opinion. You're entitled to it. Halsey, I just haven't seen any information. This goes back to my Arthur Blank comments, where I was pushing back on somebody saying he has no motivation to win. Yes, they have every right to have their opinion. They're fans. Fans can have any opinion that they want. I understand that fact. That doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean it's educated. It doesn't mean it's even moving in the right direction. I'm basing everything that I've seen off of my experiences with the Falcons organization and things that I have seen. And this is with the Falcons. This is with the TGL. This is with PGA Superstore. This is with Atlanta United. This is a guy who consistently invests as much as he possibly can to get his team to winning. He wants his teams to win. I haven't seen anything to the contrary. This isn't the Cincinnati Bengals, right? Like, this isn't even the Cleveland Browns or the Jets or these other teams who sometimes it's just bad ownership, but the Falcons say that they've played in a Super Bowl under him. So I don't see it. Tillin Thompson says, with the situation going on around James Pierce Jr., do you think it puts a bigger need on re-signing Floyd and Arnold Ebiketie? Yeah, I think so. I was answering that actually in the super chat. It's a good question. Yes, I think it would put a little bit more of an emphasis here because the Falcons need to protect their butt. It just depends on what they want at this point in their career. Leonard Floyd, he's coming up to the end of his career. I mean, he may want to go win a Super Bowl. He may have wanted to just come home and play for the Falcons. It depends on what they want money-wise. This is the first big contract opportunity for Arnold Ebiketie. I don't know what actually he's going to fetch on the open market. He feels like an enigma to me, but again, we'll see on all that. But I do think that now, all of a sudden, just a year after making those aggressive moves, you're right back where you started in some instances. So again, let's wait for the legal process to unfold. B-side says, no offense taken, and sure, he spends a lot, but he's also insanely rich. Again, yeah, you're right. Where he doesn't seem fully committed is with the constant Nepo hires, prioritize hiring people he wants to work with. It's common in all industries where people hire people that they know. It's a pretty consistent theme. You see that, and that's not just the NFL. It's any private company, any public company. People hire people that they're familiar with. People hire, and look, that's also why he went through this whole process of reshaping the organization led by Matt Ryan. That's one of the reasons why he did this. So if he was that committed to just being, the only guy who makes decisions, then he wouldn't have made those decisions. He wouldn't have brought Matt Ryan in. So again, this is just another instance of him actively making changes to try and get this organization to a point where it's back in the playoffs and competing for championships. But sometimes it's literally just as simple as getting the quarterback position right. Falcons had the quarterback position right for 14 years, and it led them to their golden era, if you will. Rio Smith, another super chat. Big thank you, my man. He comes back and says, Falcons have plenty of problems. Blank isn't one. Yep, I agree. I just think Arthur Blank, he does a good job. Fans have a right to be frustrated. They absolutely have a right to be frustrated, but I think it's being directed the wrong direction. That's all. Gabriel Rogers says, I feel like they're going to run Bijan Robinson to the ground. They might. It's a new regime. It's going to be a question that we ask. We're talking to Tommy Reese tomorrow. We'll see what he has to say. That'll be a question that I ask him. How does he approach running backs? Lots of great questions here, guys. I do want to get through to my thoughts here on this offensive staff in a little bit, but you guys are asking some good questions, and I'll keep going. CD, what is it? Dutlinger. People are funny. Stefanski learned under Gary Kubiak. Clint Kubiak learned under Kevin Stefanski. Everyone wanted Kubiak's offense. He hates Stefanski's. They are basically the same. Players matter more than X's and O's. Players, Jimmy's and Joe's over X's and O's. I think Bill Parcells said that, or shoot. Somebody who knows a lot more than I do said that, and I think that rings true. It's the reason that Ohio State consistently wins in college, Georgia, Alabama. They have the most talent. That's what it's going to come back to. And that is what matters the most, more than anything. Because what is drawing up a perfect play if your quarterback can't hit the throw? We saw that. We've seen that here in Atlanta. We've seen that several times. Arthur Smith ran into that problem with Desmond Ridder, where you have wide open receivers and just he can't hit the throw, So I think that's really what it's going to come back to. And I think it's going to be an upgrade at quarterback. It's going to be a massive upgrade at running back, massive upgrade at offensive line. And then Drake London's by far better than anything that he had up there. So depth is a primary issue here for the Falcons. But as far as top end talent, my God, it's going to be a much bigger upgrade. Shy Boogie over on Facebook says, I think we get Cleveland's tight end in free agency. What you think? David Njoku. Yeah, an interesting option. I don't think so necessarily. I've come to the conclusion that Kyle Pitts is going to be back in Atlanta. I think they're going to sign an extension. I think that's just the situation here. Because Kyle Pitts is significantly better, in my opinion, than David Njoku, just at this point in their career. Njoku, I think, is 30. Kyle Pitts is 25. And it's also the devil, because he has injury issues up there in Cleveland. He's had a lot of issues up there. I think if you can get him in here on an affordable contract, I think it could make sense, but he's going to fetch about what Kyle Pitts is going to make. And the difference is like maybe a couple $1 million. And if the difference is a couple $1 million, then I'm taking Kyle Pitts, just because he has so much more potential, and you have to see what he can do. You have to see that. And that's just specifically in this instance, but I'm starting to come to the conclusion that it's going to be Kyle Pitts in Atlanta. Shrouded Dragon comes through and says, chances of Falcons re-signing Tyler Allgeier. I hope they do. I really like Tyler Allgeier. I'd love for him to remain a Falcon, but I would say 20%, 15-20%. The only way I really see that happening is if he just doesn't get what he's expecting on the open market, if he doesn't get the opportunity to go be a starter. But I think he has enough tape to really come through and be a starter. So I'd say slim. Gabriel Rochester says, you think Penix looked good enough to just give him the job? No. I actually thought that there should have been a quarterback battle last offseason. I thought it was a mistake to just give him the job last summer. But he needs to be focused on his rehab. He needs to be focused on coming back. And the more I'm seeing the situation unfold, the more I'm coming to the thought that this is going to be a figure it out year for the Falcons, just to see what it looks like. They don't have a lot of money to spend in free agency. You do next year. And if you move on from Michael Penix, it's going to be year 3. At the end of next season, you're going to have to make a decision on his 5th-year option. If he doesn't play, then you have no idea what he's going to be, and there's no chance that you pick him up. But I'm also not saying just hand it to him. He has the physical traits of a top 10 quarterback and a top 10 drafted player. right? He's got the undeniable physical ability. I want to see what it looks like with the new coaching staff. I think that's going to be enough for me to hope that he gets the starting job. But again, if you go get Malik Willis and he comes in and he takes the job, give him the damn job. I want to win. I think that's the more important thing. But Penix, he showed flashes. And I think that his upside is bigger than anybody else that you can find on the market right now. I mean, you're not unless Kyler Murray or Tua Tagovailoa come available, you're not going to find anybody with more pedigree and higher upside at this point in their career. If you bring back Kirk Cousins, I think that changes things. It just depends on what decisions they make at the quarterback position. But as of right now, that's my projection. So, Gabriel, just to answer a question from earlier, which is what I believe you're alluding to, based off of right now, my projection for the week 1 starter of the Falcons is Michael Penix. And it's because Kirk Cousins is going to get cut and there's no other quarterback on the roster. King Atlanta supporter says, can't wait to see the Falcons get a Super Bowl ring. I hope so. Trenton, always a pleasure, my friend, says, just dropping a hey, G Money. Hope all is well. Hope all is well with you as well. Trenton's always a good supporter, big supporter of the podcast. Big welcome. Thank you for jumping in. And if it's your first time here, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to like the video. I know that we do this every Tuesday and Thursday, 6:00. Talk some Falcons football. We gotta have some little camaraderie and kind of chop it up a little bit. But appreciate all of you guys. If it's your first time, come on back. If it's your second time, I don't know. keep coming. Appreciate you guys all. You guys make this possible, and I really appreciate that. CD, your name again? C. Duttlinger. I don't know how to actually break that up. Falcons were last in special teams in the NFL. They weren't last. They were like 27th, but yes. Better special teams, and they were a playoff team in 2026. Shoot, man, you moderately better special teams play in 2025. You're a playoff team. You lost several games because of special teams. Week 1, I would say it changed the game in week 3. Ironically, it won you the game in week 2. Lost you a game against New England. I mean, there are a lot of instances of it. They weren't last, though. Somehow there were some teams who were worse. There were a lot of teams who were worse. 4 teams, actually. But yeah, no, special teams is massive. It was one of my major keys of what it will take for the Falcons to be a playoff team in 2026. You have to figure out special teams, and that goes for an investment. And that's why I think a Rashid Shaheed would make a lot of sense for the Falcons, because not only are you getting a guy who can add to your receiver room and give you that deep threat, but you're also getting a guy who can be dynamic in kickoff and kick return, or in kick return specifically. I think that would be a really good option for them. We saw what he was capable of doing in the playoffs. We saw what he was capable of doing when they came to Atlanta. He's a killer, and it changes games, especially with these new kickoff rules. It makes special teams even that much more important. All right. So real quick, I want to roll through this, and then I'll jump back into your questions. I'm going to try to take as many questions as I can. I'm trying to get to all of them. But I do want to talk about this staff just a little bit. And I know a lot of people were talking about Tommy Rees. A lot of people were talking about Kevin Stefanski. But I'm talking about the actual staffers, the assistant coaches, the offensive line coach, the running back coach, the tight ends coach, guys like that. Bill Callahan. You talk about a guy who has play calling experience. You talk about Michael Petrie. You talk about a guy who's been with the Falcons for a long time. He's close with Bijan Robinson. You keep him there for that reason. Kevin Koger, you keep him at tight ends coach. You keep him there for that reason with Kyle Pitts, and he had this all-pro season and everything else with that. But going back to Bill Callahan, I mean, look, this guy he was a head coach. He's somebody who a dude is an absolute legend when it comes to coaching offensive lines. And then Robert Prince, it's a guy who interviewed for an offensive coordinator role. Alex Van Pelt, he was an offensive coordinator. Tanner Engstrand, he was an offensive coordinator. This is the major difference between what this staff is doing and what Raheem Morris and his staff did not. You have a half dozen people who are capable of calling plays. Last year, if I had $1 for every comment on this show, just specifically mine, not even 92.9, not even Scott's show, not even all of them. Every comment that I saw, if I had $1, I wouldn't have to work for the rest of my life. if Zach Robinson was fired. Oh, we need Zach Robinson fired. He's got to go. He's got to go. And my answer was always, who's going to call plays? There's nobody else on that coaching staff who was capable of calling plays. So if I had $1, I'd be a millionaire. Doesn't mean that they had an answer, because they didn't have any answers. And that's one of the major reasons why he kept his job. And look, they have a lot of guys who are physically able to call plays. And I do like that. I thought Kevin Stefanski was going to be the guy who calls plays, but he's still going to be a part of this process. You're going to have a ton of people who are going to be involved in this process. But then you look at the quarterbacks coach specifically, Alex Van Pelt, Tanner Engstrand, that's the passing game coordinator. Those are two that I am highlighting and underlining and circling, because Van Pelt was somebody who, he was a longtime assistant coach. He spent almost his entire career with quarterbacks. He's worked with players like Drake May, with Matthew Stafford, Joe Flacco, Aaron Rodgers over the course of 2 decades. He worked with Kevin Stefanski back when he was in Cleveland. And yes, he was fired. But Kevin Stefanski didn't want to get rid of Van Pelt. In fact, after the 2023 season, that's kind of when you see a lot of these people drop off. The Browns fell off in a major way after he was fired in 2023. And that decision came from ownership. That decision came from an owner who was really getting very involved, who wanted ownership was bad that Deshaun Watson wasn't playing to elite levels. Deshaun Watson didn't look like the guy from the Houston Texans, the guy that they sent 3 first-round picks for, and how many day 2 picks? 4 day 2 picks, 3 day 2 picks, on top of a $230 million fully guaranteed contract. And then they were losing. They're like, what the hell's going on? What the hell's happening? It was a bad situation. But then he goes to New England, and he didn't have a great situation there in New England. There was a bad offense with a rookie quarterback. But Drake May made progress. Drake May looked better as the season went on. And that's kind of a consistent theme here with Van Pelt, is that whenever he touches someone, the offense seems to find its groove, specifically the quarterback. You've seen it several times over the course of his career. And I think that that's something that he can come and bring to Atlanta. Specifically, he can bring to Michael Penix. Engstrand's another one he had some of the most explosive plays last year, but he didn't have any quarterback play again. He got fired probably a little bit too early from the Jets. And I don't think that it was his fault that they struggled. But the point is, you have a lot of guys, and I see some people come in as a B-side says, to be fair, most of these guys are bad play callers. I think a lot of them have bad talent. The X's and O's, the Jimmys and Joes, we talked about that earlier. I don't think that a lot of them had an optimal staff, or optimal roster. We'll see what they can do here in Atlanta. But the thing is, it's about them having experience as play callers. These guys are sharp. They know what they're doing. And having multiple people who can come in and influence the situation. But ultimately, you have one guy who's making decisions. Like, you can talk about Auburn from last year. We had one guy calling off first down. You had one guy calling on second down. You had one guy calling on third down. It was a disaster. That's not what the Falcons are doing. Tommy Reese is going to be the play caller. But they're all going to be involved in the build-up to this process. And that part, I think, gets me excited. Having more people who with that kind of experience, it's very valuable. And that thing is very valuable. All right, I'm going to take a couple more questions, and then I got to get out of here. My throat's killing me. Chili Maddox says, what up, G-Money? What's up, my friend? Says, how bored were you with Sunday's game? I actually had a great time. I like defensive football. Defensive football is cool for me. I've enjoyed watching it. I loved watching McDonald just absolutely eviscerate the Patriots offense. They killed them. It was very much a play conservative on offense with Sam Darnold. Don't turn the ball over. Let our defense just eviscerate these guys. And that's what happened. Credit to Mike McDonald. I mean, he came in with a game plan. They knew exactly what was happening. I was watching some mic'd up situations from the game from the Seahawks sideline, and shoot, man, they knew that. They're like, we have interceptions coming. And I said before the game on 92 Down the Game that I said the number one thing that you need to watch is how the Patriots slow down this pass rush. And the fact that they were able to get there with 4, it was 4v5, and they were dominating. Drake had no chance. So, no, I enjoyed it. I wasn't bored at all. I enjoyed it. I had a great time. Halftime show was entertaining. It was great. I had a good time. John Harrell. And I'm going to take 2 more questions. So, put on your GM hat. What's your first move? I'm extending Drake London. That's probably going to be the first decision that I make because I'm trying to get ahead of things with Drake. I want him to be here. He's a critical component of this team. And once you make that decision, kind of unlocks everything else that you can do. Next thing is probably going to be cut Kirk Cousins. I'm going to do that, and then shoot, man. I mentioned Rashid Shaheed. That's just a guy that I really want. That's a guy that I really want in a Falcons uniform. I just think he unlocks a lot of different things for you. But that's just the offensive side of the ball. And the defensive side of the ball, I'm going and getting a defensive lineman. I need some 300-pounders in the middle. I need some guys to help with this run defense. That's going to be a really important aspect of this team moving forward, and that's what I would do. Rio says, the NFL is so wide open. Hopefully this new regime can get it right. The Falcons aren't far from where Seattle is. Ooh, man. Rio, I'll encourage you, go look at the draft classes over the last couple of years. And then Schneider, the general manager up there, he's putting together some bona fide Hall of Fame level. He's got a bona fide Hall of Fame resume at this point. It's starting to look that way. That guy is an immaculate talent evaluator, and they drafted very, very well. I will say this, though. Based off of the quarterback situation and the mid-market type of value that they have, they showed how you can win with the mid-level valued quarterback. So what you've seen a lot of is teams who make the Super Bowl, they have young quarterbacks, or it's not as common that you have like those unbelievably high paid, unless it's, Patrick Mahomes. You see that occasionally, but you see guys who are competing and playing at a high level. They're in the early years of those contracts, and that's when teams can go all in and kind of fill in through the outside. And you don't see it as much with these mid-level contracts. Sam Darnold changed the way people are going to approach the quarterback position. And because you see teams play copycat all the time. It happens all the time. I don't know if the Falcons are close to where Seattle is. I think they still got a little ways to go. And one of the big things is you need more spending in free agency, and you need more hits in the draft, because those draft classes that Schneider's brought in over the last 3 years have been unbelievable. They really have been something else. And that's huge. But they're also 4th in the NFL in spending last offseason. And that's something you have to keep in mind as well. And that's just not where the Falcons are right now. All right. Yeah, McDonald says McDonald's is going to get a lot of his disciples head coaching jobs. He's going to be one of those sharp young guys, and he reminds me, well, look, McDonald's a killer coach. He's a great coach. It's the first time that we've seen an all defensive Super Bowl since, as far as coaches go, since 2017 when the Falcons were there, 2016, 2017, when it was Dan Quinn and Bill Belichick. It was the first time since then that it's been 2 defensive head coaches. But yeah, and look, B-side, he says also Seattle benefited from no injuries the whole year. Any team that gets to the Super Bowl, generally they've had a lot better injury health luck than most teams. But I mean, that's what happened to the Falcons. I mean, the Falcons made the Super Bowl. Their offensive line had played every single snap together throughout the course of the season for the most part. I think it was every single snap. Alex Mack got hurt for the Super Bowl, but he still played. You didn't really have major. I know Julio went through some injuries at the end of the season, but you had already locked up everything and you could afford to sit him down and rest him up. Matt was healthy. Devonta was healthy. Tevin was healthy. Your defense was largely healthy. The Falcons, when they went to the Super Bowl, they were very healthy. That's what it takes. You got to get healthy. You got to stay healthy. And that's sort of where that luck variable comes in. But yeah, we'll see. I don't think they're not where the Seahawks are. I can't agree with you on that one, but I think that they are close to potentially showing what their identity could be. And I think that that's going to be a very important thing just as we move through these next couple of weeks. Keep an eye on players and people that they're evaluating. I know that they've still got some coaching decisions that they have to make. You have some guys who still need to make decisions of their own and see if they're going to be coming back or not. And I think that's going to be something to follow here over the next couple of weeks. But the combine's just a few weeks away. It really is just a couple of weeks away. And it is hard to believe that we're almost to that season. But that's where we are. The offseason is in full swing. But big thank you to all of you guys. Make sure to tune in again on Thursday. I know that we've got a lot to get into here on the podcast. We got to talk about free agents. We got to talk about extension candidates, and we'll do that throughout the course of the next couple of weeks. And I thanked you guys earlier. I'll thank you again. Great questions from you guys, and I really appreciate it. Big thank you, especially to Rio Smith coming in with the super chats, talking about the Falcons having plenty of problems and blank not being one of them. He said Tyler is gone, Chubb to the Falcons. Good suggestion. And then, of course, the big one, talking about James Pierce Jr. and the whole situation that he has going on, in addition to everything else that the Falcons have. Big thank you to you, my friend. And we will see you all again on Thursday. So make sure to set your reminder. Come on in here. We talk some Falcons, man. We enjoyed doing it. We went for about an hour. I didn't know I was going to go an hour today. But you know what? I enjoy myself and I enjoy spending that time with you guys. So big thank you to you guys. You guys make this show possible. But we will see you again on Thursday. In the meantime, give me a follow at GChapATL. We have a lot of great content coming out. So make sure to give me a follow there and stay up to date on everything that we have coming out. But until I see you again, my name is Garrett Chapman for the Falcons Podcast and Falcons on SI. Till next time.